Mr. Mickey Carroll is joining us in the studio tonight. It's always good to see you.
Liz, nice to be here with only a week to go till we get this over with.
Actually. It feels like forever. Okay, so you actually have said that Andrew Cuomo can start measuring the executive mansion curtains. The race is over. We've called it here. Why bother having the election? We can all go home.
Well, that's a good point. Why bother? Why have me on this show? I mean, you're.
But here you are.
Seriously, Liz. No, it matters. These measures matter because it's knowledge. It's a factor. What the polls say, and the polls say, the Quinnipiac poll says Cuomo in a walk, and Gillibrand and Schumer as well.
Okay, but before we get there, first of all, it hasn't changed all that much. 55-35 now, and it was 55-37 on October 7th. So actually, there's not been a big precipitous drop for Carl Palladino.
No, what happened is that a couple of weeks ago, remember how the trajectory of this is?
I do.
The first poll that we did showed it reasonably close.
Yep.
Palladino down by 6. What happened thereafter? Two things. Palladino had a Looney Tunes couple of weeks. He had his fight with Fred Dicker. He went on the gay business where he misspoke, obviously. And at the same time, I think Cuomo, partly because of the awareness of the Palladino surge, maybe from our poll too, anyway, Cuomo turned out and started campaigning a little bit. Remember I forgot, it was Eleanor Tatum on the Amsterdam News said, you know, he ought to pay more attention to blacks. I think basically what the message was, he ought to pay more attention to everybody.
In general,
and he
you
started
get out of the Rose Garden, yes, and then it came on this show.
Well, Liz, there's a famous story and a good one. Tip O'Neill, apparently, former House Speaker, lost
all
only.
Politics is local.
Yeah, but there's another one. He lost only one election in his life. And that was in Cambridge for some local office, the first one he ran. And some lady whose grass he used to cut when he was a kid in school voted against him. And he found out about it, and he asked her, how come? And she said, Thomas, people like to be asked. And that was the lesson that Andrew Cuomo exemplified. People like to be asked, so I'll ask. He's asking, and look what happened.
Interesting. Okay, so now tell me, I mean, regionally though, have you broken down these numbers regionally?
Yeah.
So what does it look like in Western New York? Because there's a local poll out in Western New York that shows Carl Palladino beating Andrew Cuomo there by about 2-1.
Well, our poll shows in upstate New York. Now, the upstate means everything north of the western.
Oh, you're going to start a war right there, Mickey.
Well, no, but we have to, Liz. In New Jersey, you know, Quinnipiac polls, New Jersey, blah 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 blah.
Sure.
And in New Jersey, I redrew the regional stuff to make it more significant. The New York regional breakdown that we and everybody else has used is city, suburb, and upstate.
Yes.
City, we know. Suburb means, you know, Westchester, Westchester, Rockland, and Long Island. But it means only the New York City suburbs.
Right.
So everything else is upstate. I'm not sure exactly how to break it down in a meaningful way. But in answer to your question, upstate overall, which means everything, you know, from Cold Spring on up, we measure it even. That 45 for Palladino, 46 for Palladino, 45 for Cuomo. That's a standoff. But that includes his home base. His neighbors like him, apparently.
Interesting, right? But what's significant about that is less so for the governor's race and more so for what it's going to do down the ballot, what it's going to do in Senate races, for example, and what it might do in some of those congressional races out in the western part of the state.
Well, not only western,
the
congressional.
Yeah.
Hudson Valley,
sure.
Maybe even Long Island, for goodness sake. Well, frankly, I question those numbers a little bit. But in the Hudson Valley, in Gillibrand's old district, the one that curls around.
The one that's here. It's right here
exactly.
in the Capital Region. Runs from Lake Placid to Poughkeepsie, actually, in a very long and skinny sort of way.
Well, it starts in Hudson, I think, doesn't it?
No, it goes
even
down.
further south?
Yep. Yes, it does.
Lord. Okay, well, that's a crazy district. And apparently it's going to go Republican, which it really ought to.
Right.
I mean, it's a Republican district.
Well, it was long. Jerry Solomon held it for a long time, and
Yeah.
then subsequently John Sweeney, and then John Sweeney, largely because of his own issues,
he lost the election.
Kirsten Gillibrand. Yes. So let me ask you this: in terms of these, before we go on to the Senate races, why are you not polling the two closer races, the state controller's race and the state AG's race?
I told you, Liz, because Quinnipiac, and this was over my strenuous objections that we're not, but we just don't have the capacity to do 6 states and 1 city, New York City, and 6 states. We'll skip New Jersey because it's not an election this year. So we just haven't had time. We're doing 5 state polls this week, and we had to cut them all back a little bit. I objected, but I lost.
It's unfortunate, though, because really
Of
that
course it
Attorney
is.
General's race is what a lot of people are watching. It's
Could be
a
a good
possible
one.
real pickup there.
Because
for
there,
the
I don't know what the
Republicans.
numbers would show, but certainly the division, if you will, liberal senator from from west,
downstate,
well,
from New
the
York
west
City.
side of Manhattan where I live,
Right.
versus a district attorney. Look, we know, you and I know, everybody knows, it's not a law enforcement job, but
Well,
it's
it
depicted
was a
as
law
one.
enforcement job. I mean, when Dennis Vacco held it, it was a law enforcement job. It was Elliot Spitzer who changed the nature of the office and brought it to a national platform, and then subsequently made it something that was more of what Eric Schneiderman would call an activist role for the
Well,
Attorney
we've,
General.
again, everybody that's ever had that job has decided to expand its role. And remember Louis Lefkowitz years ago? I mean, you were in junior high school, but Louis Lefkowitz was, what do you call himself, the people's lawyer? He made a big thing of helping the little guy and so forth. So they've all done something or other with it. Anyway, the point is, you got an election now between a district attorney, Republican, and a liberal senator from the very liberal west side of Manhattan. And you're right, I don't know what the numbers would show, but certainly just looking at the way it shapes up, it's interesting.
These Gillibrand Diaguari race numbers, are you surprised by that? 57-34. I mean, at one point, she couldn't get out in terms of favorable. She couldn't even get out from underneath 50. She couldn't get out there.
I know, but people didn't know her. Now, Diaguari isn't as badly off as Townsend, but nobody knows him. And no, look, Liz, once again, the trajectory of this thing. She came in, was appointed to the job, a liberal challenge, a challenge from the Democratic left could have caused her trouble, might have beat her. Schumer, who every now and then decides to dabble in politics over in his own, he headed off Israel, McCarthy.
Oh, well, with
Malone.
help from the White House, of course. I mean,
Well,
Barack Obama's people
but
got
I don't
involved,
imagine.
too.
I expect the White House probably talked to Schumer first. I don't know. My guess is, look, he orchestrated that, and so she was spared any real challenge from the left, and a challenge from the right didn't make much sense.
And he's in great shape, 64-32. Jay Townsend didn't really get much of a bounce out of that Sunday. When were you in the field for this exactly?
Oh, what is it? I'll have to look it up.
You were in the
It's on
field.
there.
Sorry, you were in the field from October 18th through the 24th.
Okay,
so
you
there
can do
was
it without
no,
glasses.
there was no, sorry, there was no bounce on the back end from
Oh,
the
no, you
Sunday
wouldn't expect it. Look,
debate.
Chuck Schumer is senator for life if he feels like it. And I mean, he'll be watching the Nevada results. And I hope you guys on election night.
We will indeed.
Yeah, on
We are
election
very
night,
interested in those
plug
Nevada
into Harry
results.
Reid.
Yes, indeed. Well, we will, I'm sure, be talking to you also again after the election. I want to thank you, as always, for coming in. It's great
Thanks
to
for
see
having
you,
me,
Mickey.
Liz. It's always fun.
My pleasure.